it's Mercy Morgan reporting from the polar vortex Arctic weather we have been having this week. As you can see, it is miserable out here. The ground is covered in this horrible white stuff. I think they call it snow. The weather is below zero, and it is way below zero, like -30 in wind chill. It is just absolutely awful. And as you can see my breath as if I'm smoking. So yeah, I'm gonna go back inside and talk to you a little bit about the polar vortex and the climate change that I believe that we are going through.
A major blizzard caused accidents across the Midwest Monday, and a dangerous blast of Arctic air is expected to spread across the region overnight. Record-breaking low temperatures will make the next few days the coldest the region has seen in at least 25 years. Wind chills will make it feel as cold as 65 degrees below zero.
For the coldest air in decades, potentially in a generation, as some are saying, as a major storm is headed to the region with snow before freezing temperatures far below 32 degrees. So that should say wind chills in some states expected to hit 60 degrees below zero.
And it is one of the coldest days ever in Chicago. The all-time record for Chicago is 27 degrees below zero. That happened back in January of 1985. So we're only 4 degrees away from that. But as you know, the other factor is the wind chill. How it really feels to people when they're outside of this. And we saw wind chills this morning that were about -50 to -55. And those sort of temperatures, skin can freeze in only 5 to 10 minutes and you get frostbite. So it's been very dangerous. Very few people are outside, I can tell you that.
So I'm back inside where it's warm, and I'm going to talk to you about a touchy subject known as climate change. I'm not going to use the term global warming because global warming has been sort of demonized and it's become a dirty word. I will say, however, that nobody ever said that global warming was going to be all warm. But it has been a hot debate and it's been disproven on several occasions. Certain things that were said by Al Gore in his documentary and whatnot. So I think that the idea of global warming is kind of a moot point. Climate change, however, is a very real fact. Climate change is about how the world is changing due to things that we have done to the planet, such as things being warmer than normal or colder than normal, going from extreme hot to cold, things like that. I can personally attest to the fact that over the years it has been warmer than normal in the summer and colder than normal in the winters. I remember growing up, we hardly ever had below zero temperatures, and now in recent years we have had several winters with below zero temperatures. This year being the most extreme with the polar vortex split that has caused the, -30 and below. Some states got -50 and below wind chills. So obviously this is the most extreme that I have ever experienced in my lifetime. But I have noticed a trend that it has gotten colder and colder, and the weather has gotten more extreme and then hotter and hotter and hotter. I remember growing up in the Midwest, there was a radio station that was, it was 98.9, and when it was 98.9 degrees outside, they would give away prizes because it was so rare for it to get to be 98.9 degrees outside. Now, they don't do that anymore, I don't think. Probably because there is an increasing likelihood that it is going to be 98.9 degrees outside or hotter over the summer, usually over 100. So let's take a look first at the polar vortex and what that is. A polar vortex is a large area of low pressure and cold air surrounding the Earth's poles. The vortex is the center, or is the counterclockwise flow of air that helps keep the colder air close to the poles. That is reported by, I think it's pronounced NOAA. It's an acronym, NOAA. It's the National Weather Association that reports on things like that. So that is officially from the National Weather Prediction, the government weather prediction site, that definition. So we have a polar vortex, and a jet stream moseyed on in and effed up its day and sent it spinning towards the US. This in itself is apparently not uncommon. It happens a lot. But what is uncommon is exactly how cold it has gotten this year. It's for one day this year, well, Tuesday into Wednesday or Monday into Tuesday, depending on where you are in the US. Some people Wednesday into Thursday. But it's for about like a day and a half this is going on. And it is sending us into record-breaking below zero wind chills that are pretty much devastating the nation. Like, there has been reported multiple deaths so far, and everybody is pretty much in a panic. So, you know, this is not something that we're used to. This is not something that anybody is or was expecting to happen. And the crazy thing is, the temperatures will not only be back to normal, but in some places will be rather warm for the winter, all the way coming this Sunday even. So that's one of the strange things about this weather phenomenon. So what does this seemingly natural occurrence have to do with climate change? Well, it really is the severity of it. If there ever was a time to witness the wrath of a damaged natural world, it would be in the harshest of the cold winters that we've been having, in the blaze of the California fires, in the scorching heat of the summers that we have been having. While burning states like Cali saw droughts, the other coastline was wrought with all these hurricanes of magnitudes that some were devastatingly record-breaking in the amount of damage that they caused. Last year was an intensely cold winter with temperatures below zero for most of the winter, well, for like several months of the winter. And this winter is characterized by a sudden polar vortex wrath that is then going into weird spring-like weather that's then going back into winter. So the weather is really bipolar right now. So all of this is lies, you say. It's completely natural. But you can't explain why. Well, I can explain why climate change is a very real and very deadly thing that is happening in the world. First of all, I'm going to explain some of the, some of the contradictions and stuff that have been brought up in the past. So in global warming, you had them talking about just hairspray and vehicles and maybe a little pollution, and that's about it. And they said that all of this caused a hole in the ozone and we were going to be, burning to death, and all of this terrible stuff was happening, that the ice caps were melting and polar bears were dying, and it made it seem like things were going to be really, really warm. However, I was paying attention during all of the global warming things, and they did say that we would have colder weather in some places where it's prone to cold weather. So it's not like they were saying that we're not going to have cold weather and that it was just going to continuously heat up. they were acknowledging the cold weather, but they made it seem more like a lot of it was going to be heat. On to climate change. Climate change is, as I said, the changing climates, variations and stuff like that, and that is brought on by a lot more than just using a can of hairspray. For years we have been abusing the earth, years and years, from fracking for oil and mining for coal, and then using those fuels that we mined for to pollute the earth. Let me break that down for a minute. You are mining for coal and fracking for the oil, and you are releasing the gases and toxins into the air as you're doing the process of the mining and fracking. And then you are taking the substances that you get from the earth, and you are then turning around and burning it to make even more pollution. So that is double the amount of dangerous chemicals that we are spewing into the air and into the natural environment of our planet. Then you have deforestation, where we are taking away the trees. You know, people are sitting around saying, we have all this pollution in the world. Wouldn't it be great if there was a natural way that we could just get rid of it all? Well, there is a natural way that you can just get rid of it all. It's the trees, and we are taking away the trees with all this deforestation by using it to make paper and using it to make other products that you can make out of trees, and then to build up cities and industrialize, which puts things that are polluting on top of the ground that the trees that were removing the pollution came from. And all of those things are contributing to the reason that the planet is suffering. Then you have things like HAARP, which stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research. It is basically, according to Google, a thing that is, sending out radio wave frequencies to try to monitor the weather and try to predict things that are going to happen so that we can better study the weather. But there have been a lot of speculation that it is actually being used to maybe influence and control the weather.
You know, they were talking about climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS This Morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, nice to see you. Extraordinary seeing Al Gore and Bill Clinton there together with Charlie, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, they did not get into this discussion, though. But it is fascinating. I mean, lasers, really, to change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. This is potentially a game changer.
But this is experimental.
It's experimental. However, in the laboratory so far it works. When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate rain. It condenses around the seeds. These seeds can also be created by laser beams. By firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning.
Go ahead.
Well, this fascinates me in part because, too, I remember reading the stories that China had used this during the Olympics, that the USSR had used this after Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. Governments have been playing with this thing.
Alleged to.
Alleged to, right.
Yeah.
Now, we realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing conclusive. This time we're bringing in the laws of physics rather than simply waving our hands and uttering mumbo jumbo. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now. And in the laboratory, sure enough, they precipitate rain out of water vapor. Sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam.
So what does it mean for drought areas that need to have rain for crops? And if they don't have them, there's the consequences of famine.
Well, the bad news is if it's a clear blue sky, it's not going to do anything at all, because it only takes water vapor that's already in the air and condenses it. However, for floods, for agriculture, farmers, for people planning wedding parties, football games, you name it, outdoor events and agriculture and flooding and even hurricanes, all of them could be subject to weather modification.
Incredibly interesting. Professor Michio Kaku, thank you so much.
Regardless of what is and isn't true in that, you still have an issue where they're sending out frequencies into the atmosphere that is interfering with the natural world around us. Then you can even go into the really iffy subjects like the spreading of chemtrails, which is where they release things from planes, and there are a lot of different theories and speculations as to what exactly it is doing. People say that it's to make them sick, it's saying that it's to kill off insects, or there's a wide variety of theories, and I could probably spend all day listing them all, but I'm not going to go into all of that. But needless to say, if chemtrails are real, and this is a legit thing that's happening, that is something else that we are putting into the environment that is messing with the planet and potentially messing with the people, but emphasis on messing with the environment. So I would like you to think of it this way. Imagine your body has a cold. What does your body do when it has a cold? It produces antibodies to fight the infection and ultimately to heal you. So what is it doing? So what is the planet doing when it's trying to change the climate? It is responding to a natural infection that it has, us. And it is trying to eliminate the infection by producing climates and changes that it needs to help it reproduce and regrow and regenerate itself. I saw a short little, I want to say it's like a documentary clip thing online, and it was what will happen to the world if humans disappeared. And it explained how it would naturally regrow and naturally regenerate itself and basically heal itself. A lot of that included extreme weather conditions and, you know, things going on, oceans taking over, breaking off parts of the countries that are near the edge of the ocean, basically dams breaking and water flowing in places that it's meant to, and basically the earth reclaiming itself. That is, in effect, what climate change is. The earth trying to reclaim itself. With the wildfires destroying populations that weren't ever meant to be there to begin with, and with the, you know, freezing sub-zero temperatures trying to rebalance the climate after all of the things that has been put into the atmosphere. Nature is kind of like the cells of a body. It's very good at regenerating. It might hold a few scars after we're gone, but it's definitely good at regenerating. And I think that if we don't allow it to regenerate and we don't stop putting things into the environment that is going to hurt it, that then we will, in fact, be removed from the body of the earth, just like a viral infection is removed from the body by the antibodies inside of it. I will be going into greater depth on this and various other topics surrounding this when I go into my video or series, I'm not sure which it will be yet, on the notion of the end of the world coming. But for now, that's all I have. So like and subscribe for more content, and stay warm. It's a nasty one out there right now.